Muy buenas tardes.
Good afternoon. The 108th Plenary meeting of the General Assembly is called to order. I now give the floor to the Secretary General of the United Nations, His Excellency Antonio Guterres.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, and in a very particular way, Madam President, I am pleased to be with all of you for the closing of the 73rd session of the United Nations General Assembly. Here, in this prestigious chamber, and in the building's many conference rooms, you discuss daily humanity's most pressing issues. In our fast-changing world, these issues are increasingly interlinked. From the climate crisis to migration flows and rising inequality, from waves of intolerance to harnessing technology for good, one thing is certain: global issues require global solutions. And the United Nations General Assembly is our universal platform to build consensus for the common good. Now, it has been my privilege to work with this body during the 73rd session under the leadership of Her Excellency Maria Fernanda Espinosa Garcés of Ecuador, the fourth woman to serve as President of the General Assembly. Working through consultation, collaboration, and consensus with permanent leadership, Ms. Espinosa Garcés has been a champion for multilateralism and to make the United Nations relevant for all. I commend Ms. Espinosa Garcés' ambitious priorities for this session, which addressed crucial matters of international impact and concern, including gender equality, migration and refugees, decent work for all, environmental protection, the rights of people with disabilities, promoting the voice of young people to advance peace and security, and revitalizing the work of the United Nations. The commitment of Ms. Espinosa Garcés with the environment, and especially to ending plastic pollution, also stands out. I am confident that her successful term will pave the way for increasing participation of women in the political sphere around the world, and for accelerating progress towards gender equality within and beyond the United Nations. Many of the issues debated, raised and accomplished during the 73rd session are testament to what can be achieved through international cooperation under competent leadership. The adoption by the General Assembly of two global compacts on migration and refugees are remarkable examples. And at the same time, the United Nations continue over the past year to advance its comprehensive reforms at an unprecedented pace and scale. We are doing so to make our organization more nimble, effective and efficient, and to better serve we the peoples of the world. As we look ahead to the 75th anniversary of the United Nations, I thank Ms. Espinosa Garcés for her leadership and partnership, and I look forward to working with the President-elect, His Excellency Professor Tijani Muhammad Bande of Nigeria. Together, let us continue to advance our mission to build a more peaceful and prosperous world, a world for all on an healthy planet. Thank you.
Doy las gracias al
I want to thank the Secretary General of the United Nations for his generous words. I will now make a statement from the rostrum.
Señor Secretario.
Mr. Secretary General, Madam Deputy Secretary General, Excellencies, dear friends, I stand before you delivering my last statement as President of the General Assembly, which is the Parliament of Humankind, and I'm doing this with the same responsibility and passion with which I assumed this mandate a year ago. Throughout this session, I have learned a great deal from all of you, from permanent representatives, delegates. I have been witnessed your commitment, your dedication, your professionalism. I've listened to each member state, to the observers, to your heads of state and government. Working with you and for you has filled me with hope and optimism in spite of the challenges that stand before us. I'm more convinced than ever that multilateralism and the United Nations are irreplaceable, and that when we work together, there is no goal that we cannot reach together. We literally have the power of transforming the world to make it better for each individual, to make it more inclusive and more sustainable. However, I've also learned a great deal from those who are the most vulnerable, those who on a daily basis confront huge difficulties, those who suffer and those who lack basic needs. During my official visits, I met with refugees, with displaced women, with victims of violence, of war, with indigenous peoples, with people with disabilities, with those who are discriminated against and excluded. I listened to all of them and listened to them very carefully. We cannot trivialize their pain and their problems. We cannot be indifferent. We must not forget why we're here, for whom we're here. That would be against the purpose of this organization, the raison d'etre of this organization. And our purpose is to avoid wars, to eliminate misery, and work together to overcome the major challenges that humankind is confronting, such as the climate crisis, inequalities, or terrorism. Now, of course, there have been many times when we have failed. We still live in a world from which we have not eradicated violence or conflicts or resolved the problems of hunger and poverty. Human beings have caused the extinction of hundreds of species, putting at risk our own existence. We are responsible for the climate crisis and of its devastating effects. We have in our hands the possibility to act now to reverse it. Today, as I end my term, I can affirm with absolute conviction that the General Assembly is the ideal forum, the unique forum, I would say, to reach agreements, to make progress towards global solutions. Your Excellencies, I want to pay a particular tribute to the nations of Latin America and the Caribbean. Brothers and sisters from Latin America and the Caribbean, you should know that the flag of our extensive land, a vibrant land based on solidarity, has accompanied me throughout my term under the flag of my own country, Ecuador, on behalf of which I have exercised this presidency. I would also like to recall the three women who preceded me. Vijaya Lakshmi Pandit from India, Angie Brooks of Liberia, and Haya Rashid Al Khalifa of Bahrain, who, with determination and tenacity, paved the way for me and many other women in this organization. I also want to thank them for their inspiration and guidance, and I hope that I have fulfilled their hopes by expanding the opportunities for those who will come after me, the young women and girls of today. They deserve the same opportunities. This is why gender equality has been a central topic in my presidency, and I hope that it will be a central theme in our work in the future. We cannot continue excluding one half of the world's population. The political participation of women, their rights, their dignity, their economic and social empowerment are essential if we want to build a more peaceful world, a more sustainable and more humane world, and if we want to implement the 2030 Agenda. Mr. Secretary General, your genuine commitment to gender equality should be a great inspiration for all human beings. I would like to highlight your commitment to modernizing our organization, and I would like to invite all member states and actors of this system to support and accompany the implementation of the reforms which you have undertaken, which are urgent, profound, and necessary. Secretary General, I have found you to be a great ally and a true friend, and I would like to say the same thing about my sisters Amina Mohammed, Maria Luisa, and Catherine. Thank you, Secretary General, for your support, for your vision, and your leadership. I would also in particular like to thank the Department of the General Assembly and of Conference Management, DGACM. I would like to thank the interpreters for their committed and effective work, to my security team, and to each one of those anonymous heroes that keep this house moving. Your Excellencies, as a poet, I believe in the transformational power of words. As a woman politician, I know how important it is to honor those words. Words create reality. They translate dreams. Throughout this session, I have sought to live up to each one of my commitments. Of course, we can always do more and better, but I must say that I feel satisfied with what we have achieved together. Now, taking stock of the 7 priorities of this presidency, I would like to mention that with your support, we have made significant strides forward. First of all, we have strengthened the participation of women in the work of the General Assembly, putting them at the heart and putting them in leadership positions in negotiation processes. 53% of all facilitators that I appointed in negotiations were women. All the panels and events were achieved parity and intergenerational parity, and my cabinet was made up of 60% of women. We also achieved significant expansion in the awareness of the underrepresentation of women in power and the need to expand their political participation, as well as the ensure access of girls and young people to quality education. Secondly, we've made progress in accessibility for persons with disability at United Nations headquarters in an action plan with 13 recommendations of the steering committee that I put in place and that are at various stages of implementation. Thirdly, we have eradicated single-use plastic in the United Nations headquarters, and we have achieved local, national, regional, and global support that has led to a worldwide mobilization against plastic contamination, plastic pollution. Fourthly, we've achieved significant support for the Global Pact on Migration while respecting the various positions of member states, and approved a intergovernmental mechanism for its monitoring, follow-up, and implementation. Fifth, we have promoted a better understanding and awareness on the need to achieve decent work for all, especially for women and young people. We've also expanded dialogue on creative economies and moved forward in our reflection on the future of work in the framework of the 100th anniversary of the ILO. Sixth, we have achieved greater synergies in our organization. These are reflected in the joint interactive dialogues and the coordination reports with the leaders of the various entities of this organization. We have established quarterly reports to member states on the most important activities of the presidency of the General Assembly and their outcomes, promoting transparency and also facilitating the work of the permanent missions and their ability to plan, monitor, and ensure better efficiency. Seventh, in spite of the complex and polarized international context, we have managed to promote a broad dialogue and a renovated and vibrant narrative on multilateralism. Your Excellencies, these 7 points are the promises that I made to you and to the world, and to the whole world, at the opening of the 73rd session of the General Assembly. It is with your support that we have brought the UN closer to the concerns of everyday people. During this session, I made sure that young people were involved in all the debates and deliberations of this organization in the framework of an intergenerational approach to each one of our activities. And it's with great satisfaction that I can tell you that in almost all the forms of dialogue and almost all our activities, we have encouraged a active participation of young people in all regions of the world. Unfortunately, their presence is still considered as something as exceptional rather than something that should be the norm. So we need to make further progress in this area, and I count on you, member states, and of course on my brother, President-elect, His Excellency Tijani Mohamed Bande. And I would like to once again repeat my congratulations to him and my best wishes.
Dear friends, recalling the general debate in 2018, I remember leader after leader speaking out about multilateralism. Large and small, developed and developing, virtually every member state acknowledged not just that global cooperation is the only answer to the challenges we face, but that we need to strengthen our multilateral system and its beating heart, the United Nations, and make it more efficient and more relevant. Indeed, had an extraterrestrial decided to visit the General Assembly that week, she may have concluded that support for multilateralism was at an all-time high. Today, there is almost no problem that does not require global cooperation. In our interconnected world, we no longer have the luxury of saying what happens over there doesn't concern us. We are global citizens, whether we like it or not, and we need to act that way. This is not a matter of worldview. It is a matter of fact. This is not about left versus right, nationalism versus globalism. These are false dichotomies. At a time when the scale and complexity of challenges threatens to overwhelm governments, it is not multilateralism that threatens national sovereignty, but it is our inability to see its benefits. Multilateralism upholds the sovereignty of states, enabling them to pursue interests and solve problems while sharing costs and risks. It is international law that protects state power in these turbulent times, when power is shifting and states are on the back foot. But precisely when the need for multilateralism has never been more urgent or obvious, it is being questioned and actively undermined with dangerous consequences. For hard-won international agreements, for this organization which is facing funding challenges, but also of politics and principle, and for the world's citizens who bear the brunt of our inaction, our inability to reach agreement, our failure to uphold commitments. Excellencies, we must never forget the huge advances we have made over the past 7 decades. The world is more free, fair, and prosperous as a result of our collective efforts. But these gains were never distributed equally, and they are slowing, even reversing, in many parts of the world. Millions have been excluded from the promise of globalization. Their concerns are being exploited by those seeking to undermine the very principles that give power to the people. To rail against multilateral institutions, sow divisions and foment hate. As a result, nationalist sentiment, xenophobia, and extremism are on the rise. Excellencies, my sincere hope for the 74th session is that we will not only hear robust defenses of multilateralism, but see it deliver tangible benefits to people's lives. Implementing the 2030 Agenda and Paris Agreement will do more to garner support for multilateralism than any speech. That is why, during this session, I have put great effort into ensuring that the design of the upcoming high-level week offers a powerful platform for delivery and action. And that is why next week's meetings must not be treated as standalone events, but as a package. Indeed, they are inextricably linked strands of DNA that make up our blueprint for the world. And I hope we will see concrete action to make this organization more effective, transparent, inclusive, accountable, and relevant to all people everywhere. While I am intensely proud of our achievements this session, I often whether we are up to the task. With so many meetings and debates, it is easy to become immune to suffering. It is easy to lose sight of the bigger picture, to mistake process for results, to be seduced by self-importance. I believe that we all agree that we need to listen more, act more, and to communicate better. We need to replace acronyms by synonyms. How many of us can truly say that everything we do is in the interest of our people and our planet? How often can we say to our children, I made you proud today? And how about the children of our colleagues? Are we fighting for their future too? In those quiet moments, how many of us can draw strength from the knowledge that we made our time here count, that we choose principle over protocol, long-term over short-term, that we did what was right, not what was easy? We cannot forget that the hopes, fears, and dreams of 7.7 billion people rest on our shoulders. We must summon the passion that first moved us to go into politics, into diplomacy. Dear friends, we have just over a decade to avoid the worst impacts of climate change and to achieve our vision of a safer, fairer, and more sustainable world. The decisions we take in the coming months will determine our course. We must choose whether this moment is remembered as one of crisis or one of opportunity. Because the greatest challenges we face, the climate emergency, rapid changes in technology and demography, migration, can also be seen as opportunities to change course. But we have to seize them, working on the ground with more resolve and more partners than ever, and working in this building to address the deficits of this organization, the deficits of true solidarity with the poor and vulnerable, and how we engage with the wider world. We must make every opportunity count. Beijing plus 25 to the 75th anniversary of this organization. Before I conclude, I want to express again my heartfelt gratitude for your support and friendship. Member states, UN system, stakeholders, and my brilliant, committed, hardworking cabinet, I am so proud of you. I know you will continue to flourish. This session has shown me that by working together, we can make miracles happen. There have been frustrations when negotiations have ground to a halt. There has been grief at the suffering wreaked by disasters and extremists and the death of so many, But there has also been joy in standout moments such as our concert to beat plastic pollution played out, and in the everyday victories that we achieve together by coming together as an international community. Throughout, I have felt the responsibility of being a woman president. I long for the day when we can stop counting women in leadership positions. I have dedicated my presidency and my life to reaching this goal, and I will continue to fight for the dreams and talents of every girl to be realized. And I have felt a responsibility to bring the voices of all into this hall. I have strived to make the UN relevant for all. In keeping with that, I will give my last word to Amine Abu Keresh, a young refugee and poet who has captured the essence of our mission. And I quote her, "I am trying to design a country that will go with my poetry and not get in the way when I'm thinking, where soldiers don't walk over my face. I am trying to design a country which will be worthy of me if I am ever a poet, and make allowances if I burst into tears. I am trying to design a city of love, peace, concord, and virtue, free of mess, war, wreckage, and misery. Let us work together to design a world that befits the poetry of our founding document, the UN Charter, and the promise of its opening words, we, the peoples." I thank you. Hemos llegado al final.
We are now coming to the end of the 73rd regular session of the General Assembly. May I invite representatives to stand and to observe 1 minute of silent prayer or meditation.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much. In accordance with General Assembly Resolution 70/305 of the 13th of September 2016, I now invite His Excellency Tijani Mohamed Bande, President-elect of the 74th session, to take an oath of office.
I solemnly declare that I shall truthfully perform my duties and exercise the functions entrusted to me as President of the General Assembly of the United Nations in all loyalty, discretion, and conscience, and that I shall discharge these functions and regulate my conduct with the interests of the United Nations only in view and in accordance with the Charter of the United Nations and the Code of Ethics for the President of the General Assembly, without seeking or accepting any instruction in regard to the performance of my duties from any government or other source external to the organization.
I declare closed the 73rd session of the General Assembly. The meeting, I beg your pardon. I would now like to invite the President-elect of the 74th session, His Excellency Tijani Mohamed Bande, to meet me at the side of the rostrum for the handing over of the gavel. Now I declare the session closed. The meeting is adjourned.